I was teaching at a community college at the time. I didn't know about near death. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what happened. I didn't know what that was. I hear the boat start up and he takes off, and that tow rope strangles my leg, and I'm being dragged underwater and I'm swallowing water. Now I know how I'm going to die. There's no way I can get out of this. So I'm having these kinds of thoughts when all of a sudden, in the middle of these thoughts, I pop out of my body. I had no idea what this was. My consciousness left my body. I'm kind of like, I'm dead, I'm drowned. And then shortly after that, I realized there's no time here. I was in eternity. No time was passing. I was dead. I didn't have a body. And I'm moving away from Earth. That's the sensation I felt. And so the next thing I know, I'm in the presence of the creator of the universe.
The A.J. Parr Spiritual Journalist Podcast.
I'm here with Donna Rebadow, and she had an amazing near-death experience when she drowned, left her body, went to heaven, and met the Creator. Hello, Donna. How are you?
Hi, AJ. Very well. Thank you for having me on your show.
So, what can you tell us about that day when you drowned and had this amazing near-death experience?
I was with my family. We were vacationing in northern New York in the Adirondacks on a lake called Bear Lake. And it was my brother-in-law's, it was his company's cabin, and it was his week to have the family up. And he brought his boat up, and we go fishing and we play on the lake with that boat. A lot of the focus is on that boat. So July 17th, 1998, that morning we went fishing and came back in, and my sister came down out of the cabin and said, "Hey, let's do our water crafts before lunch." We said, "Okay, it's about noon." And we said, "Who wants to go first?" So my brother-in-law and his nephew and his nephew's baby got in the boat. And my sister and I were on with a lake toy, an inflatable lake toy called the Bullet. It's called the Bullet because it's shaped like a bullet with pontoons. And so we got on the Bullet, and my brother-in-law slowly went out in the middle of the lake. Now it's a fairly good sized lake for the Adirondacks. There weren't a lot of people out that day. But one of the problems was it was having acid rain in the area. So the lake itself had a high level of giardia in it, and we didn't know that. So the idea is you get in the middle of the lake, and he takes off on the boat, and there's a tow rope attached to the lake toy, much like the same tow rope that's attached to skis, but we weren't skiing. And the idea is he travels around in circles, smaller and smaller circles, until you get thrown off because of the wake, and you laugh, and we just had a lot of fun. And it's probably about the third time we got thrown off, and he comes around and collects you in the boat. And we get into the boat, and they bring in the tow rope. Then my sister and I get on the lake toy again, and my sister was behind me, I'm in front, and she grabbed the tow rope. And she slowly lets it out until till there's hardly any rope left. And so we were kind of just getting ready, and we're looking around and making sure everything's okay. And we hear my brother-in-law yell, "Get off the Bullet. The boat is sinking." And we thought, there's no way that boat can be sinking. One, we weren't even in water, and there's a torque wrench that wrenches the screw to the boat into the bottom. So it's really watertight. But they were concerned about the baby on board. So as soon as he yelled, "Get off the Bullet," I looked behind me to see which way was my sister going to throw the rope. And she threw the rope to her left. And we have our life jackets on, and we roll into the water on the right. And that made the Bullet get between my brother-in-law's sight line and us. All he could see was the Bullet. He couldn't see us. I looked down and saw the tow rope wrapped around my leg. And now it's a tow rope that floats. It doesn't sink. So my sister, there wasn't a lot of tension. So when she threw that rope, there's no way it could have come around, sank, got around my leg in a half a second. So I'm looking down, and the rope's above my knee. and I hear the boat start up. So my brother-in-law and his nephew are facing the shore. They're no longer worried about us. When I go, oh, AJ, this is gonna hurt. And he takes off, and that tow rope strangles my leg to the bone above my knee. And that was that really, really hurt. And I'm being dragged underwater, and I'm swallowing water because the force of the boat, it's twin engine boat, and he's got it floored to the max to get to the shore. And I'm the water's hitting my chest, and it's making my air go out of my lungs. So here's what happened. I went, oh man, he doesn't know we're here. Now I know how I'm going to die. There's no way I can get out of this. He doesn't know I'm here. And like MacGyver, I didn't have anything. There's nothing I could have done with all my education or any tools. I couldn't get out of it. I was being dragged. And I went, well, okay. Now there's a few minutes between that thought and me dying. So, I couldn't I wasn't going to panic. So I just decided, well, I wonder what they're going to do here. Are they going to have the funeral in Arizona? Are they going to have it in New York? How are they going to do that? So I'm having these kinds of thoughts when all of a sudden in the middle of these thoughts, I pop out of my body. I had no idea what this was. My consciousness left my body. And I went through this saran wrap type veil. I mean, I could feel myself go through this veil. And I realized a couple of things real quick. One, oh, I'm dead. I realized I was dead. I went, okay. And then two, really shortly after that, I realized there's no time here. It was the funniest feeling. And people ask me to try to explain it, and I can't. But I absolutely knew I was in eternity. No time was passing. I was dead. I didn't have a body. I had consciousness, but it felt like I had a body. And I'm moving away from Earth. That's the sensation I felt. It was daylight. It was still bright light. And all of a sudden I had this sensation in my body. So your audience is going to have to be aware of the words that I'm using, because I didn't have a body, but it's like I did. So the sensations were like all my cells were vibrating and giggling and happy. And I looked down, I go, what are you guys doing? What are you so happy about? And I hear, he's coming, he's coming, he's coming. I could see my cells being like little happy faces, but there were trillions of them. Like we have like 3 trillion cells in our body. So I could see all those cells, but they were all vibrating and laughing and dancing and having a good time. We're going to see God. We're going to see God. Okay, let's go see God. As I start to look up, it's as if, how the earth has an edge. I mean, it's round, but when it starts coming up, I could feel this presence. And as my cells were going, oh my God, I start saying, oh my God, oh my God. I already knew I was dead. That was one of my thoughts. Oh, I'm dead. So I thought, oh, I'm about to see the creator of the universe. But I'm moving away from the planet. So as I'm traveling, I know I start to look back to Earth, and I started thinking about, oh, that's going to ruin everybody's day today. But as I started turning, I hear an entity, a being, someone saying, don't worry about them. It wasn't a voice. It's an instant knowledge that you hear in your brain. And it was like, don't worry about them. And I turned my head back. And when I did, everything below me disappeared. The earth, my earthly existence, anything to do with anything. It was me and the cosmos. So as I'm traveling on my way to see the creator, I'm moving from light into a darkness. It wasn't totally dark, but it was almost like that blue behind you. And I'm traveling up and away. And I'm getting all this knowledge is being sent to me telepathically as I'm moving. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Oh my gosh, that's so wonderful. And I started having this other sensation as closer that I came to the creator. It was like if love could be a particle, it's like all these particles were shooting through my body this way, but the knowledge that I was gaining was coming down through my head this way. And it's just this explosion of knowledge and love, and it's overwhelming. And so the next thing I know, I'm in the presence of the creator of the universe. And how the creator of the universe showed themselves to me was a big electrical energy presence like the aurora borealis. It was waves and waves of electricity and color and expanse. And the telepathy became, as I'm saying it, he's saying it. But I noticed that the creator of the universe said, I am the creator of the universe. He didn't say, I'm God, I'm source, I'm this. He said, I am the creator of the universe. And I said at the same time, you are the creator of the universe. It is so cool. I'm just like, this is so cool. And I started saying, you know everything. And he goes, as I'm saying, you know everything. He's saying, and it's not a he, it's not a he, she in it. It's a presence. It's an omnipotent presence through all the multiverses. It just took up every particle. And I was just like, I'm in awe. So I'm saying he, because I don't know how else to say instead of saying the creator, or I could say God. But he says, I even know the number of grains of sand on a beach in New Zealand, which I thought very odd for God, the creator of the universe, to say that. But the next thing I know, I'm instantly on a beach in New Zealand with my eye to the sand. And then I go flying back up to him, and it's like he wanted to show me about telepathy, and he wanted to show me it's a thought generating system on the other side. If you think it or it's being said, it immediately happens. So it's like I know the number of grains of sand. Boom, I'm in New Zealand. Boom, I'm back up. And I'm just having this blissful moment with the creator. And I kind of dropped my shoulder, and in one of the waves of the aurora, I leaned into him, and I felt this big electric hug, and I became enveloped in this big hug. And I was like, oh, there's no way anybody wants to leave this. I do not want to leave this feeling. It's just like, oh man, the bliss, the love, it just was amazing. And then I felt like things slowed down, and to my right, I could see a line. And I knew that if I crossed that line, I'd be dead. I'm kind of like, I'm dead, I'm drowned, but there's a possibility I could go back. But all this is new to me. So I'm like, oh, over there's dead. Then I hear God say to me, well, Donna, what do you want to do here? But it's not a voice. It's this telepathy. So one of my degrees is in psychology. And so in the 70s, when we were learning psychology, you did active listening. And AJ, active listening is, as you and I are talking, I say back to you what I think you're asking. Well, so AJ, is what you're asking me, blah, blah, blah. So I hear, well, Donna, what do you want to do here? Well, then AJ, I did active listening with God. I said, so God, so what I'm hearing you saying is you want to know whether I want to live or die? And he thought that was the funniest thing in the universe and laughed. And if you can imagine the aurora borealis laughing, it was big crackling electricity. And it was like, that's my Donna. It was like, it was just me and the creator. And as if nothing else existed, as if he made the whole creation just for me. It was amazing. And so I tell people, God so loves you, or the creator so loves you, he's going to give you an individual death experience. So I call it a designer death. Because there's 8 billion people on the planet. Not one person, not two people on the planet are living the same life right now. Well, why would we expect that to be the same in the afterlife? So this was designed for me, between the creator and myself, to have this beautiful, wonderful experience that's full of humor and laughter. So I say active listening. Okay, God, so what I hear you saying is, do you want to know if I want to live or I want to die? And it was like, yes. And so what came next, AJ, was not anything I expected. I don't know how I ended up saying this, but I said, well, since you made me, I give the choice to you. Boom. There was a silence. There was a hold, a pause. I went, I've given my choice away. I now don't know what's going to happen. I gave it away. It's like, okay, now the choice is in God's hand. Do I live or do I die? So for those moments, even though there's no time, I was like, what have I done? And I started getting the downloads of how important choice is to human beings. And it's like, well, when you go back, you're going to tell everybody about choice. And it didn't dawn on me, he said, when you go back. But I was realizing the importance of choice, that we have these choices and what surrender meant. And as I'm waiting, and I didn't know if it was 3 seconds or 3 million years, I was just in suspense. I became unsuspended and falling back to earth. I'm falling backwards. As I was falling back to earth, I could hear, good answer. And I snapped back into my dead, lifeless body. That's a trip. And so I went, what was that? And I hear the boat stop. And I thought, how are they going to get the rope out of my leg? And so I had the life jacket on and I put my hands up to get to the surface of the water. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to live. And human hands were under my armpits to lift me up. And I thought it couldn't have been my sister. She was way back where we got dumped off. And I got to the surface and nobody was there. And I'm being helped, all the water coming out of my lungs. And I went, how are they going to get the tow rope? Well, as I was coming up to the surface, the tow rope became unraveled. And I was teaching at a community college at the time. And I asked the physicist, I gave him all the data. And I said, is that impossible for that rope to come undone? And they said, yes, it was embedded in your leg. There's no nylon rope, but it came undone. And I got to the surface, and when Wes said the reason he stopped the boat, he felt someone tap him on the shoulder, and he looked back, and there was no one there, but he saw the crazy movement of the bullet and knew, okay, something's not right, and stopped the boat. And that's when I came undone and got away. And he took off. He went to the shore, and my sister and I were left out in the middle of the lake. And I looked at my leg, and all I saw was it was strangled to the bone. So I thought it was amputated. I thought I only had 2 pieces. So I grabbed my calf, because if I kicked, if I twitched, it would fall off. But I wanted to have it with me at the emergency room. So I grabbed my calf and I looked and I went, oh man, I'm in trouble. Meanwhile, my sister's swimming about 800 miles an hour to catch up to me. She catches up to me and I yell, don't look at my leg. And what does she do? She looks at my leg and screams. And then I scream. And so I said, well, I'm about to go into shock. Keep my legs lifted. Don't let me lose my leg. Now we're both pilots. My sister and I are pilots. And I said, I want to have my leg so we can fly the airplane. So we're talking about flying airplanes while we're waiting for my brother-in-law to come back and get us. So he took his time. He didn't know how badly injured I was. And he came out with another boat. And as he's coming up to us, I yell, don't look at my leg. Well, what does he do? He looks at my leg and he yells. So he's going to try to lift me into the boat. And I said, no, if you lift me up into the boat, my leg will fall off. Don't do that. So he threw a rope to his wife, my sister, and she held on to the rope and me, and we got back to shore, and 45 minutes waiting for the paramedics get me to the hospital, and that's when we realized it wasn't an amputation but a strangulation. So they were more concerned about the lake water that I had swallowed, but I was more concerned about my leg. But that's my near-death story. I didn't know about near-death. I didn't know what that mean. I didn't know what happened. I didn't know what that was. I shared it first with my best friend, my roommate, Mary Lou, and she believed me. And but I didn't talk to anybody else about it for 17 years. It was summer break. I had to go back to teaching, so I had to deal with this leg injury for a year. I mean, I had nerves had to regenerate, scars that kept scabbing and falling off, and it was a year of just trying to drag my leg around. And I didn't know what to say. I didn't know who to say it to. I didn't know about ions. I didn't know what it was called a near-death experience. I didn't know any of that. I was at the Monroe Institute for something else, and Dr. Scott Taylor knew. I told him, I started telling individual people because, they could see my leg and they would say, well, what happened there? And I was, through those 17 years, I was starting to realize that I had died. I had met the creator of the universe. This was an amazing thing that happened to me. And he was the one that told me about it and asked me to come to Monroe for a near-death experience workshop. And I said, why do I have to go to the workshop? I already died. I don't need to go. He goes, no, I want you to come. I want you to tell your story. I want you to understand. I want to compare and contrast other people's stories. So I went there, and PMH Atwater was there, and I recorded her that night of all the research she had done. And then I told my story for the first time at the Monroe Institute. Over the 17 years, I would tell a little bit of the story, especially to my sister Cindy, that was on the boat with me. But it was very traumatic for them watching what had happened to me. And my brother-in-law, the guilt he felt about, he thought he caused my injury. So whenever I'd go back home, I couldn't wear shorts. He couldn't see my scar. He couldn't see my leg. And we never talked about it. In 26 years, we never talked about it. But I started telling my sister a little bit. And then after Monroe, people were encouraging me to tell my story. And once you die like that, and you have the afterlife open to you, it's not totally closed. You come back with door prizes. Like, hey, Donna, for drowning, you get behind door number 3. So I got to have some psychic gifts. It just ramped up some stuff. I could, great communication with my guardian angels and beings, and they had given me a download and asked me to do a podcast. So I began opening up and doing my own podcast and being a guest on other podcasts, until finally in Phoenix in 2024, I gave my speech to an ions convention for the first time. My entire cosmology changed. My entire view of the universe, my faith, my, everything changed, because it was like, there's nothing that I was taught in Catholic school that I saw and experienced on the other side. There was nothing. And people would say, well, you're going to experience what you think. And I said, well, you think growing up Catholic that I would have seen, baby Jesus and the Blessed Mother? I didn't see any of that. I didn't see, God in a throne. I didn't see any of that. So it was very, very difficult for me to assimilate that and how it changed when people talked about dying or death or God or whatever. I was really quiet. I still am kind of quiet, depending on how I feel, or what do they really want to understand. Or because here on earth, we have our own belief system, and we have to have a belief system to get through every day. And so your ego is really embedded in that belief system. So for me to start talking, people would say, well, I don't believe you. I don't believe that. And I said, well, okay, that just tells me about your belief system. Or, oh, look, if I told you a story about riding a horse And I'm telling a story about my experience of riding this beautiful black stallion and where I went and what I rode. Would you stop and say, well, I don't believe you? I don't believe you about your experience riding the horse? No, people wouldn't do that. They'd accept that. But I'm telling the same thing. This is my experience of what happened when I died. I grew up in Western New York, one of 7 kids, a Catholic family, and did, our regular Catholic stuff. When I was in high school, the 60s was a rebellious time, so I left the church for a long, long time. I went into college and I knew I wanted to teach. So I went to play basketball. That's a good thing for me to do. So I played basketball. I got an associate's degree, 2 bachelors. Then I went on and got 2 masters. So I have 5 college degrees, but it all was around teaching. I considered myself a scientist. I was not a woo-woo person, although I was leading this parallel life because when I was 4, I first saw my guardian angels. And then at 8, I thought it's like if you listen to the telepathy tapes and some of these kids, I could go into the brains of other people to see what they were thinking. And I thought that was normal. So the more I had these psychic abilities and would talk about them, the more people were saying, no, that's not normal. You're not normal. So it became very important for me to be normal, even though I was having all these other mystical experiences. So I was kind of already had my feet in 2 worlds, but I still have my cosmology probably more like what the Catholics would teach. And I didn't come back to the Catholic Church until my dad passed. I was real close with my dad, but my relationship with the church had changed. I was more interested in the mystic Catholics. I was more interested in what the esoteric portions of the teachings were, not so much the can't eat meat on Friday thing. It was more like deep dive into the Spanish mystics, or so I was that's where I was at. So I was a Catholic, not a Catholic, then a somewhat Catholic, and then I got blown out of the water, and then I was like, I don't know what I am. I'm this Buddhist Zen Catholic something. It changed everything because I now have a door open into the afterlife and talking to God every night. It's you can't be the same. But after that, it was like, no, it's never going to be the same. So it's very difficult. So I'm going to tell you the next portion. I'm going to kind of fast forward 26 years for a minute. The guy that drove the boat, my brother-in-law. So in April last year, I got a phone call. You got to get up to Buffalo. Wes just got diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. You better get up here. It was 1 month from the time he got the diagnosis to the day we buried him. Only a month. So I got up there and he was going downhill fast. And, this is a Catholic family. And we got some time alone. And he said, we've never talked about that day. And I said, yeah. And he said, I'm so sorry I hurt you. And I said, let's not do this. Let me tell you what happened. And just really like the Reader's Digest version. And I said, so you're sitting here talking about you're scared to death of dying because you're going to, go to purgatory, or you're going to have all these sins or all this stuff. And I go, listen, Wes, what if that's not really what's going to happen? What if just open yourself up to the possibility, instead of sitting here using your last moments scared and crying, here's what I want you to do. I want you to plan your afterlife party. I said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to, the moment you die, you're going to be greeted by all kinds of relatives and guides and God, and it's going to be lovely, and you're going to have this party, and you're going to plan this. How long is the table going to be? How many people are you planning? You're going to invite all your, family that are there, friends that are there, and it's going to be great joy. It's just going to be great joy. So every time you open your mouth now in front of me, I don't want to hear you say, sin, purgatory, no, we're not going to do that. You've had your whole life to do that. But from here, we're preparing you for what really is going to happen. So the next day, because I'm going over every day. So the next day I walk in and he sits up as best he can and he points at me and goes, "You better be right." I said, "I am right." I told him all about what's gonna be on the other side and what's it's gonna be like, and it's not gonna be anything. So spend the time thinking about what it's gonna be like for you. And I said, there's something called a shared death experience, and may I have a shared death with you? That means when you die, I want to be there because when you cross over, I want you to meet all my friends. Can I go there? So it's getting toward the end of the month, and I have to get back to Denver. And I'm going to be the first one to say goodbye to him, but I get to say goodbye while he's still alive. And so I said, look, just remember, I want to be part of your shared death experience. Just don't forget that. So I was walking out the door and I turned to my sister, not his wife, but my other sister, and I said, he's going to die tonight at 2:00. He's going to wait for his sister to come in from Arizona, and then he's going to pass. I'm going to be back in Denver. So just get ready. So there's a 2-hour difference. So he passed at midnight, not at 2. And I woke up from a dead sleep and I looked up and I could see him. I could see a tunnel. I didn't see a tunnel during my experience, but I saw his tunnel. And he was like in a Superman pose, like he couldn't get to heaven fast enough. And I go, wait for me, Wes, wait for me. And he goes, no, you did a good job. I'm ready. That was it. you know. So after 26 and a half years, I finally got to talk to him. And I got to talk to him in a way that was pastoral, that I could help him. And yeah, that was an amazing part that not many people know about that part because it just happened. It just happened this, not even a year.
When you were dragged and were drowning, you were not desperate, you were not afraid. How can you explain that? I mean, that's not really the typical reaction of anyone about to die. Why do you think you reacted that way?
Well, I was an athlete, and so I had men that were coaches, and I had older brothers, and whenever we were playing, it was like, I'll give you something to cry about. Don't you cry. So we mostly think of men having that drilled into them. Men can't cry. Well, there's a lot of athletes that are women that are told you can't cry, you have to be stoic, you can't do this. Plus, I was a scientist, and it was like, what good would thrashing around do when there were no options for me? This was wrapped tightly around my leg to the bone, and it's above the knee. If it was below the knee, it would have ripped my leg off, and I'd be dead. So for me, plus being a pilot, when you're a pilot, you can't be saying, "Oh my God, my engine's on fire." You got a checklist. You got to go through things. Do I need to shut down that engine? Where do I need to land? I mean, we have checklists and things. You have to keep your wits about you. And I guess all that training went into, what am I going to do here? Crying about this or panicking or screaming. I'm already losing my air. It was like, well, just kind of hang out until I die.
What do you think free will has to do with our learning in this world?
We're given free will. It's a delicate dance between, you have to assimilate your belief system. So I've had to change how I believe I came into this world, what I'm doing in the world, the importance of what humans are doing. So what I'm about to say is my theory of this, and that is I get to sit down with all my guides and choices in my spirit groups before I came in, and as if we had a list going, how can I evolve? Because this Earth planet is really where all the tough souls go, because you can exponentially evolve your soul here greater than any other place in the universe. So when you come here, you go, well, why don't I have this, and this experience? And you agree to that and you come in, but you still have free will. So my friend Tom Campbell says, he played around for about 20 years, not doing what he thought he should do or being asked to do. And he kind of got a little tap on the shoulder and said, no, you came here for this. So it's this The free will to say no. We always have the free will to say no, even if we have that contract. And I've done that sometimes with my guides where they've asked me to do stuff and I'm going, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not saying that to that person. I'm not going to do that thing. Are you kidding me? And they're persistent. Okay, Donna, I think you ought to tell AJ this. No, I don't want to tell AJ this. I don't want to say anything. No, we really would like you to tell AJ this. So you still have the free will to say no. And you still have, like, to me, it's like an outline or somewhat of a course that you agreed to before you came in, like just not quite a delineated path, but a path that I wanted to go down. But I still had choices within those paths and choices with my free will. So it's this amazing spiritual ethereal dance between you, the creator, your guides, and what you had agreed to.
Do you consider yourself a Christian, or do you like all religions?
On the other side, it's like all paths lead to God. What do you feel you like? What's in your milieu? You know, what did you grow up around? What do you know? What's your knowledge base? So remember, I was Catholic then. I wasn't. When I wasn't, I was looking at different religions. So for me, it's like now I'm very spiritual person. I would tend to, if push came to shove, tend toward Catholic charisms as opposed to Catholic dogma. But I know who God is. I know what the universe is. I know what the other side is. And it's really more about love and kindness in your heart as opposed to reciting commandments or dogma or whatever. How are you living your life? What quality are you bringing to the creator of the universe? And I want that to be the best, highest quality that I can be, and not bring 900,000 fundamental attribution errors. I don't want to bring a box of attribution errors. I want to bring a box full of love and kindness. I wrote a whole course, a course in choices for ions. And I have it on my website because I can't do it in a sound bite. So there's a depth and a breadth to the word choice. And so I teach people about it. So on my website, exploreconsciousness.com, there's a PowerPoint. And even though there's no, I don't have the audio track that goes with it, you can get the resources and you can read through the PowerPoints and to describe all the choices that we have and how we make choices, quick choices, smart choices, immediate, we do all kinds of choices. But the most important thing is the choice you have that comes from your heart and how you feel about other people and how you treat other people, because what you're going to bring is love. What you're doing is you're evolving to love. And so I teach people about the fundamental attribution error. Fundamental. We all make it. Every human being on the planet. It's fundamental to who we are as human. Attribution. We're going to attribute what we see you say or do. We're going to attribute something either to your personality or the situation. The error is that we tend to attribute it first to your personality. For example, my students consistently late to class. That's behavior. I'm watching this behavior. I'm attributing it, what do I say, to his personality. He doesn't care. He's lazy. He's this, he's that. Well, it's an error. So I teach people, if you can, ask the person. So I did. I asked my student, well, I need to see you after class, and I want you to explain what you've been doing. Why are you late? Do you care or not care? And he said, Miss Rebadow, I have to tell you this. My mother's a single mom, and I'm the oldest child, and I live 3 bus lines away from school. I chose this school. It has the program I want. But I have to get my little siblings off to school and then take 3 buses. So if I'm late or there's an accident or a bus breaks down, I'm going to be late, but I'm going to do my best to get there. Wow. I had to change everything I thought about that student and change everything I thought about life. So it's called the fundamental attribution error, and that's part of our choice package. So if something happens in your life, it's going to be presented in front of you. So either a person or a group or something. And how you think about that, how you think. Thoughts are things. You're being heard in the afterlife. You got your angel sitting there going, really? You want to do that? Really? So the default is don't make the fundamental attribution error, but think first about the situation. Those are choices. So this is not a soundbite. This is a whole teaching on how do you change. So I teach people how to change their thinking and value the choice and evolve into a loving, kind person and giving people the benefit of the doubt. That's the best I can do here, AJ.
How can people contact you, and where can they find your website?
So I have a podcast, Exploring Consciousness with Donna, on all major podcasts site. You just type in Exploring Consciousness with Donna. My website is explorerconsciousness.com. Now, the email there, I get in it. It's just me, people out there in the audience. If everyone starts emailing me, it's going to be really hard for me to answer you. I don't have a secretary. I don't have, anyways, you can email me. I just don't know when I'm going to get to you. You know that, AJ, trying to button me down for this interview. I've got this, I've got that, I've got this. I say peace to all who enter here, and my email is there.
Do you have any final words?
I'm considered an NDE, or a near-death experiencer, but I'm more than that. I bring my whole self to every day. Whether it's a pilot or a waitress in Switzerland, or a jewelry maker, or a podcaster, or being in the Basketball Hall of Fame, all those are parts of me. And so when you're listening to these NDE stories, these people are being very vulnerable to you to tell you what their experience was like. So it tends to be three people. One, people that say, because I didn't use the word God, or I didn't use the word this, or I didn't say the right things, that they think I'm from Satan. So that's false. Two, they think I answer for God. I get a lot of questions that, well, what does God think about this? What does God think about that? And I'm like, I'm not God's secretary. He's universal. He's his ways are above and beyond our ways. Or people that are genuinely, I try to help with a kind word or whatever. But just if you could, the biggest thing is to just live what's in front of you. What do you see every day in front of you, and live that to the best, do the best you can with what you have.
This has been the A.J. Parr Spiritual Journalist Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe.